Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's your old buddy, the guardian of chaos, Big Daddy. And I tell it like it is, coming to you live to tape, 25 feet below the surface of the earth. I'll say that to say this. It's been a little while since we've been here at Chaos Corner, so I want you to sit back and relax. We have a few people here now live in the studio. We're in the middle of the winter solstice, as you can tell by the G.O.C. Follow me on all social media platforms, of course. That's at Twitter, at Big Daddy GOC. And the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Hit the profile link. That will knock you over to here, the Guardian of Chaos on the YouTube channel. Of course, follow me on Facebook at JBrony and Protigio Fidelis El Guardian on Instagram at the Guardian of Chaos. And of course, you can catch me on Gitter, on Rumble, on Parler, on Gab. We cover it all in the IWC. So sit back and relax as the GOC brings you Chaos Corner. It's been a little while. We're here in February of 2022, and we're putting out content for you, the fans. So let me lower the distraction. I want you to sit back and relax, have a good time, as I always say, cup of coffee, lunch, brunch, whatever it is that you want. But we're going to give you news, history, and facts from the IWC. Of course, I am sporting my NHL jersey, New York Rangers. Now, fans, you know I've changed my opinions on sports and don't really follow them as much because there's too much going on in the world. I can't be distracted by nonsense. But the one thing we do follow on the regular, of course, is pro wrestling. You want to call it sports entertainment. You want to call it being a stuntman. I call it professional wrestling. So we're going to sit here and we're going to give you a little bit of history. We're going to have a good time. Follow all my other buddies over on social media with their podcast. It's unbelievable. Sit back. Relax. It's me. It's me. It's the GOC. We're going to get this up today, tomorrow. Who knows? Don't you dare miss it as we pop over to all the other social media platforms. Welcome back to YouTube on the Guardian of Chaos YouTube channel. Of course, I want you to do this. And I know I've been saying, of course, a lot because, of course, that's what I say. I repeat myself. That's part of the Guardian of Chaos. I want you to share, hit the button, subscribe, tap that bell. Let's get it out there. Let's get subscribers. Let's get in the algorithm. Let's have some fun, as I always say here at Chaos Corner. Live to tape. Double your pleasure, double your pain. Tag teams. Sit back. It's story time with your old buddy, the Guardian of Chaos. I have my notes. I refer to the Bible from over 20 years ago of this business. The Complete Idiot's Guide to the World of Pro Wrestling. A match made in heaven. Burt Randolph Sugar and Captain Louis Albano. What an unbelievable read from well over 2 decades ago. Wrestling matches are generally fought one-on-one. But when tag teams enter the ring, there are at least 4 people prepared to do battle. While most matches in the squared circle are solo matches, tag team duos are always in demand. That was my specialty. As my former mentor, one of my influences, Captain Lou Albano, I've had probably well over a dozen, 15 different tag team champions in my former career as pro wrestling manager. It was definitely one of my favorite things as opposed to being involved in 6-man tags and managing those or tag teams, even some intergender mixed tag team matches, singles grapplers, although we always have our favorite in singles. I have my favorites of all time that I managed, and we'll talk about that on one of these shows. I also have my history of tag teams. And on one of the episodes coming up, one of the shows coming up here on Chaos Corner, we're going to talk about the folks, the talent, the stars, the legends, the young lions that I've managed. And we'll cover most of that. That'll be an interesting local and international and independent look at the pros that I have worked with. I think you'll find it very entertaining. There is room for both types of matches on the wrestling circuit, and fans like their variety. As we know today in 2022, there's many types of varieties of pro wrestling matches. In fact, there are over-the-top theatrics and action make them one of the wrestling's most popular features. In this episode, I'll show you what tag team wrestling is all about. The very first tag team match was held in San Francisco sometime in 1901, but it didn't make much of an impact at the time. Wrestling fans usually date the effective beginning of the tag team to 3 decades later, say 1937, 1938, in Houston. That's when a new style of wrestling match called, variously, Texas Tornado, Australian Tag Team, that's when those matches began. The guy who usually gets credited for this innovations was Houston promoter Morris Siegel. Well, really his nephew, story has it. The story goes that Siegel's nephew was sitting in the John, and when he was struck by an inspiration, I don't know what that means. If you can have one-on-one wrestling, why not two-on-two? He shared this bolt from the blue with his uncle, and the rest is wrestling history. It didn't take long for the concept to spread far beyond Houston, especially since this was the era when promoters were trying anything to get depressed fans back into the arenas. And it got expanded. If two were good, why not more? Eventually, the Battle Royale came into being, where as many as 20 wrestlers would all pile into the ring, and the one left standing in the end would be the winner. The innovation that nearly turned tag teams into a keeper of an idea for wrestling was a simple one. Have one wrestler inside the ropes and one outside the rope, all at times. Initially, they were also restricted by being tethered, potato, tomato, into a turnbuckle. But the particular detail has long disappeared from the scene. We know that. Tag team matches were often used as the novelty act to open a show, and midgets were often used in there for comic relief as well. A famous duo, the Bushwhackers, who I had the unfortunate experience of working against. I think I got licked on that one too, I'm not sure. Were the prototype for this kind of act. The New Zealanders were funny looking, dressed alike, and began a match by licking each other's head for luck. They looked harmless, but they got their start as the legendary bloodthirsty sheep herders, a hardcore blood and guts tandem that worked with barbed wire and other foreign objects. Let that sink in. The entire concept of tag team wrestling changed in the 1950s when Vince McMahon Sr. came up with the idea of teaming two solo headliners. Anyone? Bueller. Antonina Rocca and Miguel Perez to capture the fancy of Latino fans. From that point onward, tag team matches were no longer thought of as a novelty act, but became a major part of every wrestling show. Thank God for that. You see, I'm always playing with my chains here, right? Did that sound right? Playing with my chains? I don't know. Let's move on. Coming up with just the right mix for a successful tag team isn't easy. I should know. I've managed enough of them in my time. You have to look for the right combination of sizes, strength, and wrestling styles. And you have to make sure that they have drawing power as a pair. Most of all, the wrestlers have to be able to operate smoothly as a single unit. One of the best tag teams of the early TV era was known as the Fabulous Kangaroos, Al Costello and Roy Heffernan. They were both very proficient single wrestlers, but their ability to work together made them great as a team. The synergy of a well-put-together tag team can make all the difference in the world. For example, Lou Albano was never particularly talented as a single wrestler. But when he got paired up with the Stamford Stomper, Tony Altamore, and you know the local history here, and Paradise Alley and the Paradise 4, the Quest facility, and tough Tony Altamore from the WWF. We'll talk about that in the locals when we get onto that too. Known as the Sicilians, they became much more popular, with most people anyway. And Vince McMahon Sr. was the one who matched them up, and the one to give them their name. It was supposed to be a play off the TV series The Untouchables, which was very popular at the time. They played their roles for all they were worth, dressed in black tux jackets, fedoras, the whole 9 yards. The first TV interview, they both held up their black gloved hands to the camera and shouted, "Mafia." Not a good idea. When they went back to the hotel after the interview, they were met by a very special welcoming committee, which included tough Tony Accardo, the head of the Chicago family, not one to travel alone. He was escorted by 5 or 6 of his enforcers. After ascertaining that they were both Italian, a lucky thing at that, Accardo proceeded to lay a few home truths out. "Well, my boy, there is no such thing as the mafia. We're businessmen and so forth." And he strongly advised the Sicilians never to wear black gloves anymore and never, ever, ever to use the word mafia again. True story, Captain Lou and Tony Altamori and the Sicilians. Having a good look at Accardo's companions, they were more than happy to comply. The little unpleasantness aside, they had a great run as a team, one of the popular combos of the 50s and 60s. That seemed to be the way of it in a wrestling world back then with tag teams. Take two wrestlers who weren't particularly talented on their own and put them together and bingo, instant popularity with the crowds. There's a lot to learn from tag team wrestling, especially if the Guardian of Chaos, that was my specialty. If I say it, take it to the bank. If Captain Lou or Burt Randolph Sugar says it, take it to the bank of Watch Over You. Watch Over You, get it? Take it to the bank. You look for certain indefinable something, like I used to in my teams. You got to be finding it because just like Captain Lou, who had some 19 or 20 different tag teams, I'm close to that in the independent circuit. The first for Captain Lou were the Mongols, then Tarzan Tyler and Luke Graham, King Curtis Ayukea and Baron Cicluna, the Lumberjacks, the Blackjacks, the Moondogs, the British Bulldogs, the Head Shrinkers, the Wild Samoans, Pehea Oi, Melihini Kane, Pupule, Wiki Wiki Mahalo, and on and on and on. That's how it goes. We don't want to get into the tag teams that I have. We'll get onto that, but we can throw some of them out. Rikishi and Umaga, Yokozuna and Jake the Snake, the Power Company, John Diamond and Tony DeVito. The list goes on and on and on. This is a lot of fun for me. Can I just tell you that with the personal connection? And with you fans and what we do here and being back here in 2022? Yeah, maybe. I know. Calm down, Chaos. I didn't need any comments from you guys, did I? You're lucky to be here. As tag teams grew in popularity, a new gimmick was added to the mix, the celebrity guest team members. Remember Mr. T? Then riding the wave of his popularity on the hit TV series, The A-Team was one of the first. His pairing with Hulk Hogan against Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was a big hit at the first WrestleMania. And of course on MTV, if you remember back in those eras, the war to settle the score, the brawl to settle it all, which led into WrestleMania and the beginning of what really was the golden era, in my opinion. What a time to be alive. At that point in my life, I was in my early 20s, going to an institute of higher learning, working in all the clubs and restaurants, and even tried to get into wrestling myself at that point. You're going way back, 84, 85. That's what I'm talking about. Hogan's celebrity pairings didn't stop there, of course. Much more recently, he partnered up with the bad boy of basketball, Chicago Bull, Dennis Rodman, to take on Diamond Dallas Page and his own celebrity playmate, Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz, and that was in WCW. You guys remember that. Remember, we're going back well over 2 decades ago. And if you go to Road Wild, and when they were up in Sturgis, I believe that's where that match might have taken place. Wrestlers take their inspiration for persona from the pop culture at large all the time, so why not tag teams? The Road Warriors, also known as the Legion of Doom, were for the better part of the 80s and the biggest and baddest tag team on the planet, and in the 90s, well into the 21st century. They drew their inspiration from the Mad Max series of movies and the Fabulous Freebirds out of Atlanta, Georgia. Another unbelievable tag team took their name from the ultimate encore rock tune by Leonard Skinner. The Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, both out of the University of Michigan's wrestling program, and a great example of tag team teamwork at its best. They wrestled for WCW, the WWF, and briefly for ECW, and then back to WCW. They've split up, gotten back together. Scott turned evil, and now he even went by Big Daddy Papa Pump. It was never Big Daddy. It was Big Papa Pump. Remember where we are now. We're in 2022, but this is over 2 decades ago as we go back and reveal the history of tag team wrestling. Rick Steiner, out of that, if you remember, always stayed quite the simple guy, and you wonder why his brother turned on him, the whole Steiners and how they started and split up. And if you know the story from myself back in the late 80s, traveling with the Head Shrinkers, the SST at the time, one of my good buddies, Lenny, we had a chance to actually hang out and meet Scott Steiner before he officially broke into the business. Quite interesting and crazy how the characters turned, to give it a little personal connection. What was once joined together, and of course, before I get on to the next point, the Road Warriors, in my opinion, the best of all time in tag teams. That's just my own personal opinion. What was once joined together can always be put as under, of course. And I keep saying of course, but you get it, right? Especially if it's good for the storyline. The most famous tag team split up was one of that occurred between Bruno Sammartino and Cowboy Bill Watts. You got to really go back and do your research. That's what we do here on Chaos Corner. Back in 1965, pitted against Smasher Sloan and the Golden Terror, Sammartino was downed by the dastardly duo and reaching desperately toward his partner for help. But Watts inexplicably pulled back out of Bruno's reach, leaving his partner to get the way, you get it, beaten out of him by the two bads. When the bout officially ended, Watts came out to the center of the ring where Bruno was still lying prone and put the boots to him. The grudge match between Watts and Sammartino that came out of this whole incident were legendary, and in the end, Watts got his comeuppance, just like we look back at Sammartino and Zbyszko as well into the 80s. Late 70s, early 80s. At their last meeting, Sammartino mutilated Watts' cowboy regalia and kicked his former partner into submission, roaring, "We'll see who does the kicking and gets away with it." The standard tag teams that began as novelties and grew to be major attractions in their own right are no longer as prevalent as they were in the 70s and 80s. We all know that in 2021. The big trend today is for storylines featuring gangs. At least it was 2 decades ago. Now the promoters are emphasizing larger groups, like today too. NWO, Nations of Domination, DX. As someone who has worked with tag teams as wrestlers and as a manager for much of my career, I think it's just a shame, to be quite honest with you. Evolution, Inner Circle, Pinnacle, Bullet Club, whatever you want to call it. I'm just telling you the facts of where I'm coming from. This is what I do. Singles or doubles. Today, some wrestlers specialize in tag team wrestling. Others play in both single and tag team matches. I like the word play. It can be difficult for wrestlers who made their names as part of a tag team duo to break out as solo wrestlers. We know that very well. It's sort of like an actor becoming a typecast in a single role. There's no rule that says a wrestler must choose between tag team events and solo events. Logically, however, it's often best for workers and wrestlers and their teams if they concentrate their efforts on team play. Moving back and forth from solo to tag teams can be confusing. And one-on-one wrestling and tag team matches require markedly different skills and techniques. Let's face it, let's be honest. Let's look at the differences between one-on-one and tag team matches closer. Speed is one of the most important elements of a successful tag team. A wrestler has two moves fast to get from one side of the ring to the other. For his tag team partner, you have to move fast. If a wrestler isn't fast enough, his opponent will prevent him from making a tag. When this happens, the match turns into more of a solo bout. You guys get where I'm going. You understand. I know I'm talking fast. I had Red Bull. Sugar-free. Sugar-free. So I hope this is sinking in. Let it sink in, replay it, re-listen to it. I want to get the information out to you guys, and this is unbelievable. History of tag team wrestling. Granted, in modern wrestling, tagging up is not considered a necessity for a partner to enter the ring. I don't like that either. But by the rules, a tag must be made. It's, however, one of those rules that is made to be winked at. There's another reason why speed is essential in a tag team match, and we all know this. Fast wrestlers can evade big wrestlers. They can use the ropes to launch flying attacks, like we know is all the time here in 2022, and can roll with the punches, so to speak, more easily than less agile wrestlers. Quick tagging is about the most important part of winning a tag team match. Speed is essential. I'm just saying, it's the truth. You guys know it. The fans know it in the IWC. Tag team players must be able to anticipate the moves and needs to their partners, learning the time to moves, learning to time them up as well. The jumps, the tackles is important. The wrestlers on a team must also know how to pace themselves so that they stay fresh in the ring. Tag teams must know when to make a tag, when to relieve the partner for a rest. Until a team has worked together during numerous matches, the rough edges show during the bout. But wrestlers who do battle regularly with the same team partners fare much better. Common sense. This is why some wrestlers settle into tag team matches and don't go solo. Makes a lot of sense to me. Another feature of many tag teams is their grand tradition of flamboyant rule breaking. It's easier to flaunt the rules in a tag team match, while the ref is monitoring one dueling duo. The other wrestlers in the ring have a huge chance to cheat. The referees outnumbers and simply cannot see everything that's going on, and especially with a manager like me at ringside, a Captain Lou, a Gary Hart, a Paul Ellering, a Jim Cornette, a Bobby Heenan, a Freddie Blassie, a Jimmy Hart. I mean, I could go on and on and on, a Joe Gertner, a Bill Alfonso. Who else do you want me to say? I'll tell you, it's crazy. Wrestlers know this and take advantage of the opportunities afforded by it. Good tag wrestlers know that distancing a referee can be crucial in deciding a match. If a tag team has a manager or valet to help them, their distracting deeds will grow. Bingo. Wrestlers who don't have ringside help had to devise their own strategies for getting a referee to look the other way. This is another reason why wrestlers who work together regularly trend to be more successful. It's just the way it goes. They have time and experience needed to pull off major masquerades. Distractions work best when a third party can be counted on to make a ruckus that a referee will turn to face. In his way, both members of the tag team are free to damage their opponents. It was said earlier that fast wrestlers are an asset. Distractions are another reason why. It takes a fast wrestler to jump into the ring, do his damage, return to the other side of the ropes before an official spots the illegal activity. Consider this example. One wrestler is nearly pinned by another. The referee is watching closely and ready to count. The partner of the wrestler on the mat is also watching, waiting for a tag or a decision to rush into the ring for a save. He doesn't notice the manager of the opposing team coming up from behind him with a metal chair. All of a sudden, the ruthless manager whacks the wrestler's knee with the edge of the chair. The waiting wrestler falls from the apron, writhing in pain. Meanwhile, the ref has not seen anything, so the manager's team is not penalized. It's just that simple. Wrestlers are not supposed to enter the ring during a tag match until their partners tag them. But many wrestlers jump in the ring early, as I said. It's considered a necessity when they're wrestling the villains of the sport. We know that. As the manager slips back around the ring, the wrestler on the mat squirms loose and looks to his tag partner and to tag him in. But his partner's not there to tag, thanks to the cheating manager. Worn out, the wrestler loses the match. He probably should have won. We've seen that all the time play out on TV and in live events. And it's not been for the devious manager, none of this would happen. That's the history and the role of the manager in the tag teams and how important it is. There are other sneaky moves that can lead to tag team victory. Someone may attack a wrestler who is outside the ring. A valet might distract a referee to allow a wrestler from outside the ring to come inside and inflict damage on an opponent. For example, while one wrestler is held in submission on the mat, a valet may distract the referee while another wrestler leaps off the rope and crushes the man on the mat. It's pretty simple. And we know that the TNA of valets that came in the Attitude Era in the 90s actually got rid of the traditional old school managers a la the Guardian of Chaos Big Daddy. And unless you were a legend like Paul Heyman or Jimmy Hart, you really didn't survive much after that into the 21st century. And you see it's almost non-existent with very few right now. Hopefully it makes a comeback for the next generation. Managers, to me, are one of the most important things after the actual grappler himself to the whole business. And the referee, it's just the way it goes. It works in symphony. It's like a perfect dance. Another popular and illegal tactic is other wrestlers to join the game. As we said, if other wrestlers decide to enter the ring to save their friends, a large number of bustling bodies can be found within the ropes on any given time. Always run-ins. That seems to be the trend in 2022. During a tag team match, there can easily be as many as 5 men in the ring. With the poor enforcement of ring rules, tag matches have become more of a gang riot than a wrestling match. There are some wrestlers who play it straight, but their observance of the rules often results in lost matches. It's a shame, but it seems that cheating during a tag team match is not only acceptable, but necessary. The best tag team players and teams are matched closely to their partners. Good managers have an ability to put together teams that complement each other. As I said earlier, their wrestling skills, their size, their speed, their experience, their look are all factored into the decision of making them partners in the ring. There can be times when specific wrestlers are brought together as a team for promotional purposes, but the teams that continually finish in the victory circle are carefully created. Members of a tag team have to be willing to work in conjunction with one another. Neither wrestler can afford to showboat. It is, after all, a team effort. Some wrestlers are not willing to share the glory during a tag match. Think of it as the basketball hero in high school who would not pass the ball to his teammates. So we all know people like that. Unless members of a tag team are willing and able to work together, the team will suffer. It's pretty simple. Managers who are serious about building durable tag teams will invest a lot of time and money in the evaluation process. Wrestlers will be tested in practice matches and training facilities, in training and preparation. Sometimes the wrestlers will perform together a few times in real matches to see if they have any chemistry. Good tag team managers film tag matches of opponents and watch them for weakness that can't be attacked in future matches. Can be attacked in future matches. I think that's the only screw-up I've had here. You know what the legendary two-time Hall of Famer Bully Ray said, who's the co-host of Busted Open Radio and certainly got a lot of heat from his John Moxley comment. You know what he said to me on at least a couple of occasions about 20 years ago? Give the Guardian of Chaos Big Daddy 6 spots and he'll fuck up 5 of them. I consider that to be a compliment coming from a Hall of Famer, even though he has the heat right now at Moxley. I love you, Bully Ray. I love the compliments. That is a compliment. Where were we? We were talking about tag teams, and a lot of time goes into getting to know potential opponents and putting an effective tag team together to beat them. And that's where I tell you about my countless hours of research and reading and videotapes and studying the most important part of the business. That it really is. If you want to know what you're doing, you got to know who paved the way before you. You have to know the history. It's pretty simple, guys. You're missing the boat if you're not doing your research and becoming a student of the game. The process of creating an excellent wrestling team can take a lot of time. It can also be quite frustrating. Just because 2 wrestlers are excellent in their sport during solo matches doesn't mean that they'll perform perfectly as a tag team. It's pretty simple. Before we talk about the current winning tag teams, and I'm going to go back over 2 decades because I can't really relate to all this, although I respect it, love it, incredible athletes, love the sport. We're going to go back to classics. So stand by. Let's take a quick look. Tag teams acts from the past. See what we come up with. And you can leave a comment in your section. March 1985 found a fearsome foursome in the wrestling ring, and they weren't all welcomed by the 22,000 fans who crowded the arena to watch the show. The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov were getting abuse from the audience. Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo stood on the other side of the ring, ready to defend their WWF title belt. It was sure to be a fierce fight given the political climate of the times. American fans held great distaste for the Russian and the Iranian. The match started early as Windham and Rotunda were exchanging last-minute glances and high fives. The Russian Bear made his move before the bell ever rang. Well, the original Russian Bear was Ivan Koloff, in my opinion. Windham and Rotunda stood on the other side of the ring, ready to defend their WWF belt. It was sure to be a fierce fight, as we said. The match started early as Windham and Rotunda were exchanging last-minute glances and high fives. Rotunda sent the Sheik flying to the mat. After a tag-off, Windham used his extreme agility to leapfrog and nearly pin the Sheik. During one scuffle, Rotunda pulled the Bear's arm out of its socket, a.k.a. Nikolai Volkov. Crowd reaction was enthusiastic. It looked like the Americans would retain their belt without a doubt, but looks can be deceiving. Up until a certain point, the match had been played mostly by the rules. As Volkov and the Sheik sensed a losing battle, though, tactics changed. The big turning point came as Rotunda got Volkov in a submission hold that looked like it would get the job done. Thinking fast, the Sheik grabbed a cane from manager Classy Freddie Blassie and leapt into the ring. Windham saw the Sheik's bad intentions and entered the ring to cut him off. It was like two bighorn rams rushing each other on a mountaintop. As the Sheik met Windham in the ring, Blassie's cane came to the star of the match. The Sheik raised the cane and crashed it down over Windham's head. Splinters of the wood from the cane flew into the first few rows. Windham collapsed to the mat. During all of this, the referee was concentrating on the other activities of the ring and missed the cane. The Sheik jumped on Windham and pinned him for a full count. In a matter of illegal moments, the Sheik had stolen the title from the Americans. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fair. It wasn't appreciated by the crowd, but it was effective. By raising cane, the Sheik captured a championship title. This type of cheating is still prevalent in modern wrestling matches in 2022. Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, have never been known for their gentleman-like tactics in the ring. Their preference for dirty tricks and win-at-all-costs ways have made them successful, but they don't fight fairly. Rest in peace, both Animal and Hawk, here in 2022. Many years ago, the Road Warriors faced Stan Lane and Steve Keirn, otherwise known as the Fabulous Ones, in a classic match of good versus evil. Although, if there was any one team that got main event status, people came to see them, pop the crowd, whether they were heel or face, and they were basically heel, but people and the fans treated them like faces. It was the legendary one-of-a-kind Road Warriors. There's no two ways about it. Here we go. The odds might have been reasonably even between the Fabulous One and the Road Warriors, except for the third player on the Warriors team. This, of course, was unofficial, illegal, and wrong, but it was effective, and we know who that is. The manager once again, Pretty Paul Ellering. It started fast with the Warriors ganging up on Lane and throwing him from the ring. Keirn faced both Hawk and Animal, using karate skills to keep them at bay as Lane recovered. It didn't take much for the tag team match to turn into a four-man brawl. In all the excitement, Precious Paul Ellering and the Road Warriors manager, obviously, bashed Keirn over the head with a chair. The referee didn't see this, and when Hawk covered the motionless body for Keirn for a pin, the referee awarded the match to the Road Warriors. This allowed the Road Warriors to maintain possession of their AWA title belt. NWA after that, WCW, New Japan, WWF, really unbelievable. Once a novelty act, tag teams became so popular that they became major attractions in their own right. The methods used in tag team wrestling differ from those used in solo matches. Good managers spend a lot of time in matching the right wrestlers to create a tag team. Speed is considered one of the most important qualities for tag team wrestlers to possess. People outside the ropes, like managers, valets, often influence the outcome of tag matches, and the art of distraction is the most important tool for the tag team wrestler. Fans, what an interesting show this was. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I had a lot of fun with this in the history of tag teams. As I said before, follow me on all social media platforms. Subscribe, hit the bell. Let's grow this thing. We're going to continue to push out content. I can't thank you enough for being here 25 feet below the surface of the earth, live to tape. Who knows when this will go up? But this important information is priceless and timeless, like you, the fans of the Guardian of Chaos. I'll say that to say this. Stay tuned and don't you dare miss it.